Make better money choices. Choose a bank that takes your money seriously. Business Watch is brought to you by Nedbank.
And the clock just hit 2 p.m. It is Wednesday, the 24th of September. A very good afternoon to you and welcome to another edition of Nedbank Business Watch right here on Eswatini TV. My name is Notsile Sitole. In the studio, my co-host, Sifiso Ngumalo.
Notsile, good afternoon to you and good afternoon to our viewers. Thank you so much for choosing to tune into this edition of Nedbank Business Watch. Should be the last episode of the month. Am I counting correctly? I know my math is not the best.
No, you're not wrong, yeah.
I'm correct?
Yes, as of next week, actually, the Wednesday edition, the Nedbank Business Watch on Wednesday, it'll definitely be August. I mean, October, rather.
Is it October?
Yes.
Look at us, man. All right, good afternoon once again. It's just a minute after 2. The weather outside is looking really, really beautiful, but do expect low temperatures tomorrow. That is what the Meteorological Service is telling us. But you know, we are learning that it is drizzling outside right now. You know, we've been in the studio prepping for the show, and the weather has changed multiple times. We are learning that blessings. In Eswatini, we say it's blessings whenever it rains.
Speaking of prepping for the show, care to fill us in on what we have today, Sfiso?
Right. All right. So today on the program, we do want to shine a spotlight on some of the major developments happening around the country. First and foremost, we are going to speak to Thandi Ngumalo on a conversation that speaks to shaping the economic pulse of Eswatini. First, a look at women, youth and persons living with disabilities at the Center of Inclusive Entrepreneurship, the local chapter of COMFWB. They call it COMFWEB. It just wrapped a stakeholder meeting aimed at unlocking real growth opportunities. And Chairperson Thandi Ngumalo will join us live for a break down. It is going to be virtual, but it's still live. And then, of course, we want to speak to the retirement funds that are under the spotlight, with assets now topping 52 billion in Malangeni. As what it is, pension industry is no longer just about securing futures, but it's quietly reshaping the economy. Our economist, Sanele Sbia, joins us to chime into the risks, the opportunities, and what it all means for you. So stay tuned for these two critical conversations coming right up on the program.
And on my end, we're going to focus on a unique banking product designed to help groups save together and achieve their goals. Introducing the Club Savings Account, also known as a Stokvel account, a facility that makes it easy for clubs, friends or community groups to pull together their funds securely, earn interest and enjoy flexible access to their money. Join me with Nedbank SME Manager Sive Shabangu to learn more about how this account works exactly, the benefits it offers and why it is a smart choice for collective saving. That's a conversation coming up right here on Nedbank Business Watch. But first, our business news.
Digital helps you make cross-border payments. Human gives you global specialists. Digital allows you to apply for a loan anytime, anywhere. Human connects you to credit experts. Digital puts you in control of your money, while Human connects you to wealth advisors. Digital allows you to freeze, unfreeze, cancel, and reorder your card. Human gives you that personal touch. Digital when you want it. Human when you need it. Get the complete private banking experience with Nedbank Private Clients.
All right, we get into our business news now.
With over 600 multi-purpose cooperatives in the country, most of which are struggling to perform effectively, the Eswatini Multipurpose Cooperative Union, with support from the Ministry of Commerce, Industry and Trade, is hosting an indaba at Kodak to equip members with the necessary knowledge to grow their cooperatives and make meaningful economic contributions. Vice President Mhlonipheni Msibi states that multipurpose cooperatives face numerous challenges which they are determined to overcome.
The Vice President says they are currently exploring ways for multi-purpose cooperatives to access financing, emphasizing that their rural location often limits their opportunities and potential. He further states that they will be explaining the requirements for accessing funding, including the role of bookkeeping, why it is essential, and how it should be properly implemented. He continues to say they will also talk about the importance of ensuring sound governance and effective cooperative management.
Tinhlangano letinengi tinebulukhuni kwati ukuthi setihlangene tiphuma tibhekaphi emaqondana nokuthi tithola njani bonsumbulwana phela beke ukuthi basungule leyo misebenzi yabo tidzingo tini labafanele batilungise leti taba ngamaphepha latawuvula iminyango yalapho khona bafuna lusito sinetinkinga teke ukuthi setikhona letinhlangano kodwa engabe vele lamabhuku agcineka ngendlela efanele yini akuguqukini lento besibaya kamuntu sifuna kulungisa inhlangano leti tabathi inhlangano leti timele tingumuntu titimele tingabi taka sibanibani sinase kufika emathuba ukuthi sesiphelile isikhathi ngekusho kwemithetho lebekiwe kukhonakala ukuthi vele labo bantu bayesuka etitulweni sekungena labanye.
The Commissioner of Cooperatives, Russell Nxumalo, details some of the policy formulations in place to assist these cooperatives.
Well, the department is currently working on a policy that will touch upon governance and compliance. And on top of that, we will have a resource mobilization policy which will assist our multipurpose cooperatives to access finance and also technical expertise from different partners that we work with as a department. Currently, we have close to 600 to 700 multipurpose cooperatives. Not many are well known because of the nature, the space in which they operate. Unlike savings and credit cooperatives where you walk in and you get money, with multipurpose cooperatives, you actually put in the hard work because you're in agriculture. You understand how agriculture is. It's labor intensive.
The World Bank recognizes multi-purpose cooperatives' vital role in promoting rural development, poverty alleviation, and economic inclusion by enabling community participation, resource mobilization, and access to vital services like credit, market access, and training. Reporting, Nelson Langamandla, Vuminkosi Nzinisa, Eswatini.
In order for a family business to stand the test of time and lead a lasting legacy, there is a need to incorporate innovative entrepreneurial activities, to embrace risk-taking, as well as to integrate artificial intelligence. This was part of the discussion during the second edition of the Family Business Summit, hosted by Red Eye under the theme Growing Legacies, Embracing Change. The event was held at Happy Valley, Eswatini.
This year, we are continuing, now we are looking at how you can create a legacy, because it's not just enough to make profit. A business must also contribute to the development of the community. It must be run ethically, and the owner or the founder must make sure that it is run in such a way that a legacy is created, because if your business will collapse as soon as you are not there, then there is no legacy that you have created. So this year we are focusing on how change can be managed in the family business. We are focusing on the issues of risk. We are including the use of technology in family businesses. And we are, of course, looking at how a family business can continue to be entrepreneurial and even spread to other regions, maybe even other countries.
The Director of Small and Medium Enterprises at the Ministry of Commerce, Industry and Trade, Mluleki Dlamini, who was representing the minister, says government has put initiatives in place to support businesses.
As government, we remain committed to creating an enabling environment for family businesses to thrive, and we continue to strengthen policies that support MSME. Family businesses. Recently, we've been piloting a Citizen Economic Empowerment Act, which we are developing regulations that will empower all business owned by Eswatini. So we are saying targeted businesses that will benefit through procurement and also investment in terms of partnership, joint ventures, and other initiatives. I'll also be looking at issues of crowdfunding if you're looking at family businesses in terms of their expansion. As we expand in terms of access to finance through national financing schemes and public-private partnerships, we are also looking into getting all of those initiatives, government championing with the private sector so that these businesses can grow.
Sifiso Ndwandwa, Executive Director of Sotaba Enterprise Associates, says the idea of Family Business Summit is to enrich local family businesses.
We wanted to bring best practice to this kingdom from elsewhere to make sure that we blend that which is our own lived experiences of family-owned business with that which comes from international communities.
The African Development Bank states that family businesses on the continent constitute a large percentage of businesses in Africa, with employment figures reaching around 70 to 90% of jobs in some countries. Reporting, Nelson Dlangamandla, Vuminkosi Nzinisa, Ezulwini.
All right, that marks the end of our business news. We are done with our business news.
And we'll go for a net break now. After that, Nedbank Business Watch continues. More coming up.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.za. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.sz.
Welcome back. We get into our discussion segment now. With growing investments in local markets and rising member contributions, Eswatini's retirement funds are quietly reshaping the national economy, with assets valued at over 52 billion emalangeni. This is according to the quarterly statistical report by the Financial Services Regulatory Authority. Behind the numbers lies a strategic shift, governance challenges, as well as opportunities for inclusive growth. Economist Sanila Sibia is in studio today and is going to help us understand the trends, the risks, as well as what this means for workers, policymakers, as well as the future of financial resilience. Sanila, we are seeing, well, good afternoon. Hey, decorum is very important. Yeah, but we are seeing a rise in both local and foreign investments here. How balanced is the portfolio, and what risks or opportunities that presents?
So when you look at the portfolio between domestic and foreign investments, you can see that somewhat Eswatini seems to be balancing those two. So what we're seeing there is a situation where there's both policy mix in that, and then there's also the astute investment capabilities of the fund managers and those other entities within the FSRA spectrum, those capital asset acquisition companies. So what we usually advise for is when you are dealing with investors' money, and more especially when you're talking money market transactions, you need to, even in your foreign portfolio, go for those ones that are somewhat guaranteed to make you the return the return that you want to be able to pay off your investors. So when we look at the portfolio, the way it's structured, and you look at the way that Eswatini the Financial Services Regulatory Authority has structured the regulation around this is such that our companies are expected to follow certain rules and regulations when they're investing. They're not allowed to gamble with people's monies. So there's always that balance to ensure that we are getting the best in return.
Yeah, but contributions surging nearly 50% year on year. One wants to understand what it is that is driving that growth.
It could be a couple of issues, but I actually think, and I think as the report encapsulates in there, is the fact that employers actually are improving on the way in which they are contributing and remitting those contributions to the pension and the retirement funds. Because if you look at the statistics, even our biggest ENPF was somewhat operating at a ratio of 0.8. That means they are raking in terms of contributions, but they're paying up more. So you need to, just ramp up in terms of the compliance. So it's also an issue of compliance, making sure that you're compliant with labor regulations in the kingdom. Yeah, management expenses jumping by 90%. Should members be concerned here about how their funds are being administered? When you look at that number, you have to look at it in two dimensions. Right. When you are looking at management expenses year on year, you will see that there's been that increment, right? But you've also got to look at the broader portfolio. We're seeing this much increment. Right now, we're talking of 52 billion in retirement funds, overall 114 billion funds under management. So when you look at that and then you compare it, with the previous years, you will see that there is a bit of that increase. So when you increase the contributions, you also do expect to see an increase in the costs. What I would be worried about is if those management fees were actually 90% of the overall expense portfolio, but in this case it is not. It's still marginal at 90% and seems to be, the threshold seems to be holding very well. Lump sum payouts are increasing sharply. It could be one of two things here. It could either be retirement behavior shifting, or it just could be fund maturity. What is it? Yeah, there is the issue of because when I'm focusing on retirement funds, what it speaks to me is more the demographic transition and the demographic shift that we are seeing in Eswatini. People are actually getting to the age of retirement, and if you look at our population pyramid, we have quite a younging population as a country. A majority of our population is at the age of 35 to below 35, 15 and 35. Whose parents are all retiring. Yeah, the long and short of it. Right. Yeah. Interesting. Membership growing steadily. One wants to ask how inclusive the system is, and perhaps especially for women as well as the informal sector workers. Yeah, you are going to push me to one of the controversial topics. Not controversial, let's say it's topical, right? With the conversion of ENPF with the Provident Fund to a pension fund. I think that's what it seeks to cover right now. Because when you talk of this 52 billion, you're largely talking of those people who are in informal employment with a formal pension scheme. So we can see that in as much as we're seeing that the retirement funds are becoming a huge vehicle for capital mobilization and actually future wealth creation, but it does leave out quite a huge chunk of our population. If you look at our dynamics and the fact that we have around 33% unemployment rate, so now that means those are 33% of the working class at present who don't have a pension coverage or any pension scheme. The informal sector, there again, there are no pensions, there are just no rules rules. So people are just working, and when you get to a certain age, you take your money, you go. So we do need to seek and to push towards financial inclusion in the retirement sector, and largely so, Mr. Nxumalo, because when you look at other countries, the picture tends to reverse. For example, if you're to compare the US, where people create their own 401k, people in the US are not pensionable. You create your own pension over the period.
Right.
So when you look at the fact that 52%, it's around 52% or close to 50% of funds under management right now are actually coming through from those pension schemes. Of the 114 billion, 52 billion comes from the pension schemes. Now, what you've got to ask yourself is, what does this mean for future wealth creation for those that are not part of the pension schemes? What is happening? And when you look at other funds, you can see that we're talking, less than 2 digits in the billions. So that shows the savings behavior and the investment behavior of Eswatini. We tend to seek towards, having that what's it called, safety net in our pension schemes. So we don't really have that investing behavior where we are chasing stocks and trying to make money. So the question you are raising is quite pertinent when we are talking of the intertemporal dynamics of investments and ensuring that in future, when you get to a certain age, you do have some money that you can use.
This is very little time and yet so much ground to cover.
Yeah.
And perhaps I should make a pledge that we'll have you on Gusile Breakfast Show, maybe on Friday, to cover more ground on this very important topic. We still do want to understand, what standalone funds or umbrella funds, the role that they play in this economy, as well as, whether this sector does indeed align with national development strategies in terms of infrastructure and more other development. But we will have that conversation on KBS on Friday. For now, let's go for a net break. The show continues after the break.
Ngiphinze ngikwamukele ngolomhleso lothamile lihlelo iNetbank Business Watch njengoba ke ngivedile ukuthi namuhla sita ukukhulumisa indzaba ye-Club Savings Account. Lokuhlelo loluthulwa lubhange lolukhuthaza ukuthi bantfu bahlangane babuthane bonge imali yabo babanyenti ke noko kuva kabanti sengina lobuke noma kumphathi wabosomabhizinisi lobuke bosomabhizinisi labancane SME manager khona ebhange Sive Shaba ngikuvusele empele ngomukele ehlelweni. Sicela usitshele kabanti ngale Club Savings Account nokuthi kahle kahle vele kulama khasimende enilibhange ilungela nje bamfu labanjani.
Ngiyabonga Nothile, ngibingelele kuba bukeli emakhaya. Ngilapha namhla ngilokhuluma ngelihlobo lokuseva lesilibitwa ngeClub Savings Account, ikakhulu lwatiwa ngokuthi stokvel account. Leli luhlobo lokuseva lapha khona sibuke kuthi lungaqala abantu labathathu kuya ngetulu lapha khona sikhuthatha kusibaseve kanye lokumcoka lokuthingakala ukuze sibaqale lohlelo lohlobo lokuseva lolu kuthinga sibabe iconstitution babe neconstitution uyathi ke nawe mbukele ekhaya kuthi naze naba babili noma naba ngetulu lababili kuthinga ukuthi be nemgomo wenu la ndawo kusho ukuthi indawo sebenzisana kanjani.
Kulaba labathathu akudzingi ukuthi kumbe nibhalise ukuthi niyibhizinisi noma niyasebenzisana ngandlela thide ngaba nje ukuthi nibasekhaya nifuna nje konga imali.
Yebo kusho ukuthi nje kulomgomo ngila khona ntatnika ligama kulomgomo wena usibhakile ukuthi litinika ligama sindatibita ngekuthi nibobani nine akuthi ngakali ukuthi lize libe ama association nabanye abantu bese baqabanga ama association sithi nje sinesifuna abantu nebe bathathu nangetulu niyakhona ukuthi ningalivula lo hlobo lokuseva kusho ukuthi nasekhaya nenihlangene nababathathu niyakhona ukuthi ningakhona lokuvula lo hlobo lolibhuku nasemsebenzini ningagroupana nibe bathathu niyakhona ukuvula lo hlobo lolibhuku.
Naku-ke manje sesibathathu sesifise ukuvula i-club savings naye Nedbank, engabe yini mhlawumbe ngumalini lolodzingekile, just the minimum balance yokuthi sikhone ukuvula i-club savings account?
Kusho ukuthi i-minimum balance letsingakalile kuze sitoqala lokuseva kuba ngu-1000 asikanqabeli ke sikulibhange ukuthi nenitelo 1000 ngeteni toqala ningaqala nje ngalele incane lenayo kepha ke nesenikhipha sentawuhlukaniselana sokuphele umnyaka noma sokufika leso sikhathi lalithi ngakhona niyakhona ukusinishiye lo 1000 lo sibamba bhuku.
Ukuthatha mhlawumbe songasipha lama benefits ekokuthi yini buhle bekuthi ni approach elibhange Nedbank to say ukuthi ngifuna ukuvula i-account nemndeni wami noma nanaba labathathu labanye bakithi compared to nangitawube sengifuna kuvula i-account ngedwana. What are the benefits nje ale club savings account?
Ngiyabonga ngicabanga umbuto lomuhle lo ngidawukhuluma kakhulu nganathi tinhlangano lokuthi lesitibita nge-stockfel nike nabona kakhulu babukeli nafunza amaphepheni nafunza nabona nakubabona ukuthi yalo nje sekuthi naso isikhathi sokuthi kufuna kuthini ehlukaniselane isikhathi sabo December bathi emalunga agazethi malitabo angatholi lutho kungakho is-encourage ukuthi into oyifaka ebhange le mali ningayifaki emabhokisini ematrankini ekhaya noma phansi emicamelo lo ukuthi niyifake ebhange futhi kusita lokuthi naseni reporter le emalunga ni reporter ngento lenayo ngiyabekisa nje nesokufika isikhathi sokusinethula umbiko wenu wenyanga unanaso statement sasebhange lesitshengisa ukuthi nayivele le mali ikona kunalokuthi nje kusho umuntu athi imali ikona ingimalini aniboni kungakho nje si encourage ukuthi babukeli emakhaya bethe leti mali batotifaka ebhange ngoba sesende usikwaba lokuthi uvulele le hlobo lokuseva lolo.
Lokunyela ngikuvile ukuthi kulehlelo leli there's free cash deposits nekuthi ke zero maintenance fees engabe nje kusebenta kanjani lokho kumbe ungasicacisela?
Yebo tindzaba leti mnanzi kakhulu leti kubabukeli kusho ukuthi nje babukeli niyaba deposita kulolu hlobo lo account leli asicharge deposit sho ukuthi nje deposit mahala kepha ke ngingaqhaza nje kancane ukuthi umgomo lesabukela wona ilibhange lethu lelikhulu la kaNgwane ukuthi ungadeposita imali ibe free up to 30,000 kepha nasengetulu kwa 30,000 nathi sesiyaqala sesiyibuka ngale indlela le mali
nani seniyadla ngala.
Yes.
Kule withdrawal sesi applyile mhlawumbe sesibhalisile nelibhange sesi group vele naku sesivulile i-account nase sifuna ku-withdrawa niyasicharge yini vele noma kuyayihambe kanjani?
Ku-withdrawa ke nako akucharge kumahala
minimum or maximum?
Okay, kude maximum kude ne-minimum shothi ningayikhipha nje leniyifunako kepha ke mhlawumbe nisichazele kubabukele emakhaya ukuthi si encourage lokuthi ni save kusho ukuthi siyanivumela ukuthi ningenta ema-withdrawal lamabili ngenyanga abe free kepha ke nosokwendlula laba lamabili kusho kusiphela nawe soya-transactor nathi libhange sosebenzisa kakhulu sibese sesiyacharge ke lena yethi 3 nangetulu sicharge 30 emalangeni.
Okay. Engabe le mali nasa siyibhangile khona la kule account le ema interest rates akhona yini kumbe ukuthi libhange liyabuka ukuthi cha nangabe lenhlangano noma labala bathathu lese bavulele le account bayibeke isikhathi lesingaka kumbe sesiyaqala ke seyadala?
Yebo ngiyabonga msakathi ngisho ukuthi nje kungaba kukhutsata lobukele ekhaya noma ke labangemalunga lese bavele banawo lamabhuku ukuthi babuke ama statements abo asebhange i-interest ikhona kule hlobo lo account kusho ukuthi kuya ngekuthi unamalini wena kulelo ibalance yakho kepha ke sikuthine sikupha interest up to 3.1% lokungetulu kwaloko nosho sike wena ke sowufuna kugcina ngetulu siya ku encourage ke kulibhange ukuthi ngalokho siloku ukuthi ubeke le mali sibese sesiya ku encourage ukuxoxisana nathi ukuthi teke sathatha le mali lo soyigcinile mhlawumbe sifike siyifake kuletinye inhlobo tethu tekuseva lapha khona utawuthola izuzo lengcono sinabo bo fixed deposit sinabo boma notice deposit ngaba ukuthi uxoxisana kanjani
Nangitibhangela nje ngingedwa kulula ukuthi namhla ngifuna kuyi-withdraw imali yami. Engabe la kule club savings account is it the same policy ukuthi mhlawumbe emalunga imali ayithola within sikhathi lesifishane la ifuna ngayo?
Ngala kulehlobo lolibhuku kuya ngawe ukuthi uyifuna nini njengoba sisho ukuthi ayikho fixed njengoba uyibona le interest esisukupha yona yincane ngalokuthi ungafika noma nangisiphi isikhathi uyilanze kusho ukuthi kude dincabekelwa into ukuthi ungayithatha nini emalunga neseka idzinga le mali yawo ayayikhipha ngaleso sikhathi la ifuna ngaso.
Engabe ngitiphi tinhlelo noma ke ma digital banking options la khona ngalokuthi phela vele sisaphila itikhathi ebuchwepheshe ukuthiwa imali asiyonke ibe safe you know lama transfers abe electronic ngabe given le hlobo le account yini lama digital banking options la khona la sekela kwayona nje lokuthi malunga kube lula ukuthi ngingadzingi ukuthi ngisukume phansi ngihambe ngiyofuna imali ebhange but ngikhona nje ukuyithola within a couple of minutes.
Okay siyabonga umuntu lomuhla nawona loyo lo hlobo lolibhuku lo kwesiyakhona kusinesivulele lona sikukhona ukuthi sikufake ukuthi ubone ema transaction akho ku internet banking. Internet banking uyakhona nalokuthi wende ema transactions khona ungathatha imali uthihambise tiye emalungeni lababhanga la kangwane noma lababhanga ngephandle sinetinhlobo letiningi ke le tale mafayila lesingaku itshela ngawo nesestate phansi nawe mbukeli nosho ukuthi ngiyabekisa nje sokuphela isikhathi sosinedlukwaniselana kukhona lesikubuta ukuthi singakunika lifayela la khona ubhadala khona abantu labaningi silibita ngebulk file uvele nje ufake lamagama alabantu lababhadalako nema banking details abo ulihambise lihambe lonke bonke noma ngabe bangakhi bayahamba ngaleso sikhathi sinye ngoklikha nje libutton linye.
Okay la ngasicacisela impela ukuthi ngabe kahle kahle ngubani lo nale access kule account ngibuta ngobe kusona lena sodwa iphendvula singemalunga asifani emandla ethu akafani ncinye vele on a monthly basis asifani ngalokufakako I mean asifani ngalo asifaki in fact khona la ebhange deposited the same amount so now mina ngidawufuna ukukhokha 500 ncinye lenye ilunga lifuna ukukhokha nje 200 ngabe le account in terms of ukuthi ema fees or ema withdrawals abe structured kude kuthi ahlangabetane netidzingo talelo nalelo lunga.
Okay ngicabanga ukuthi lokho kunokuthi emalunga akhokha malini sinesite tincabekelwa netaloko kunalaba labakhethile bangemalunga ukuthi bataba ranela le account ngidawuthi le executive le committee ngiyo lele ngiyona yatiko ukuthi tidzingo temalunga tingimalini bona betela kithi sebakhulumile lokho batokhipha malini ngiyabekisa nje sho ukuthi ngilaba labathathu lesibabalile labana emniningwane ukuthi badzinga malini ngoba basuke bona sebetha sebakhulumisene nemalunga abo sineke sithatha lokhu lesinikwe ngilaba labathathu labacela ukuthi bakhiphe malini asibabuthi lokuthi yalunga bani bayoyendani
sesephetha nje lelihlelo nawulibuka kwawena njengemuvu ikakhulu lobuke labo somabhizinisi labancane lilusekela njani i-financial inclusion
lokuyasita lokuthi ku promote le culture yokuseva ebantwini kubonakele kusuma ngiseva ngedwa kube likhulu ukuseva kanzi neseva si group siya encourageana Shabangu akwafaki kule nyanga kwente kanjani uyabona kanjalo njalo siya encourage lokho siseve kungako nje sitawucela kumalunga lokuthi abahlalisane bungumndeni emakhaya ababangane emsebentini bende lehlobo lokuseva luyasita ikakhulu nyalo nje sekutabo bokhisimusi nenibeke ngenhlanye niyakhona kusenhlukanisela imali nihambe niyothenga ididzingo tentakhisimusi kuta bo January isikhathi esiningi sitikhanza sesibamba inhloko sesingathi kusimazi ithatha kanti no saver ngepurpose yokuthi kutawuta January ikhona yami lengibeke eceleni kutanisita nakona lokho
sala usephaketi itinombolo Shabangu lapho khona emalunga ancike khona lo sotawufisa ukuthi ibutela kabantu ukuthi ngichumana nani Nedbank nginthola kuphi
Siyabonga sing-Nedbank siyatfolakala etinkundleni tekuchumana sikhona ku Twitter ngiba ngasivakashela futhi nasekhasini lethu lelibhange kanzi siya encourage ukuthi bavakashele bobhenka ku onke amagatsha aseNedbank boxoxisana nabo mhlawumbe sengiyiphetha nje na kungaba kukhutsata kulaba lesebavele banato sebavele sebavulile emabhuku sebasevile kuthi inyalo ngilesikhathi sekutabo December or sokuthi lesikhathi sokusibahlukaniselane siya khutsata lo sibazivakashele batubuka status sema account abo si status dike sema account abo siyesibuke lokuthi i-verify iwe in for KYC bese kuyabambelela nokhanza ukuthi insinto okhipha imali nikhanza ukuthi anika verify baphinze babuke futhi ne-account yabo ayikho dormant so that nesebato khipha letimali tabo bangabambeleleki babukele emakhaya
uthe malunga nje akahlala faka ensho ukuthi le account ibe active
ihlala ibe active yes
no cha kevakala mpeke ngalomuhle loyo ngusive Shabangu lo SME manager ebhange iNedbank asitshela nje kabanti nganalihlelo le club savings account lelikhuthata ukuthi bamfu babuthane babe 3 or more kude ukuthi bakhone konga imali yabo sitawuthatha likhefu nasibuya lihlelo Nedbank Business Watch liyachubeka
Siqhubeka nehlelo lethu iNedbank Business Watch lomuhla njoba lesithathu kulesikhathi ke sifuna kuteka indzaba ye-Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa Federation of Women in Business Local Chapter lethi ke iyati khunga iphinze iyati ikhutsata nebantu ukuthi ekutsenini aku empowerishwe emabhizinisi labukwe bomake bantu labasha kanye nebantu labaphila nekukhubateka lomuhla ke bebane emhlangano nema stakeholders lahlukahlukene lakhona bebabuka emaso ekuthenini ma business abantu la bakhona lapha event la kangwane angakhonsa kanjani utasita ke market handi inqumalo long chairperson wayo le nhlangano kuthi nje si understand bomcoka bayo nokuthi vele nangemambala bebateka debate indzaba sikuvusela sikwamukela ehlelweni mnguni uka Nedbank Business Watch si yacela mnguni manje ngathi silahlekelwa sithombe sakho asakuboni moyeni kodwa sisakuvusela sakwamukela sifuna lokho ukuthi sibuke lo mhlangano noma lo mbuthano benikathe ninawo engabe ungathi nguphi nje umlayeto lo bemcwa kakhulu leningathi uvelile noma ke lisu lelimcwa kakhulu lelivelile kulo mhlangano Mnguni bekukubuta nje ngabanhle sakwemukela ehlelweni ukuthi engabe kube ngumapi emasu lo ngathi abe mahle kakhulu lavelile kulomhlangano Alright, sitama kuchumana namake Thandi Nxumalo long chairperson wayo-ke i-Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa Federation of Women in Business Local Chapter. Labathi ba dedicated ekuthenini bathole emasu lahlakaniphile kusekela emabhizinisi ebantfu ke laba phila nekukhubateka bomake kanye nensha bebabambeke umhlangano nalatinini labasebenzisana nato esukwini lalo muhla sifuna kuva kuye Mnguni ukuthi engabe ngomaphi emasu laphumile kulomhlangano siphinde sikuvusele Mnguni sikwamukele ehlelweni sifuna nje kuva ukuthi what decisions or ideas emerged lo ngasho ukuthi na cha nangemambala siphume nawo emasu lahlakaniphile sisehlangene. Yakho immutekile if you will mane usichafatele li button lakho lapho la unmute. Yeah, sakulungile Mnguni.
Ngiyavusela Msakadi, ngivusele nemlaleli ekhaya. Siyabonga kakhulu kusivusela kulomhlangano lobo omkhulu kangaka uyindumezulu kithi. Breakfast meeting empeleni nama-development organizations and financial institutions. I-theme yethu ke beku-unlock opportunities and neku-strengthen ama-partnerships for women ne-youth nalabakhubatekile. Kube impumelelo kakhulu umhlangano wethu kwadise phela kokuthi besisingathwe nangusihlalo webhodi ku-region make Maureen Sumbwe kanye na-CEO wethu lo soka head office eMalawi lapho bebato support batowenda siciniseko nje ke kulama partners ethu illegality yethu. Singasho ukuthi kube mcoka ngoba besithi introduce ngoba i-visibility yethu isengakevakali kahle. Siyabonga nje nini naku niyasifaka emoyeni ukuthi bantu beve bomake Eswatini ukuthi nali lithuba lapho bomake bangahlangana khona bakhulume emnotfo ukuthi umnotfo ukhushulwa kanjani. Umhlangano ube impumelelo ke ngoba empeleni onke ama-stakeholders lebekakhona ama-partners lebekakhona ajabule kakhulu. Nyalo sitawukhona kuxhumana siye sihlangane nabo sibonisane lokuthi bakhona kusisita kuphi ngoba besinalokuthi sifuna kubanjiswane sipartnerishe nabo sitokhona kuyidonsa kahle lenqola yemnotfo ngoba nasi sodwa ngeke.
Yeah, kunenzaba lenkulu ke uma silandelela umsebenzi wenu lenaye neyiteke naye nethi inclusive entrepreneurship. Engabe ungasithatha yini usibeke ukuthi si understand ukuthi engabe lokho kusho ukuthini vele uma sekuthiwa sibuka ipractice nyalo sesukile enzabeni ukuthi nje siyayiteka emihlanganweni.
Angathi noma ngikuva kahle yini but thina i-mandate yethu wekukhuthaza make wonke Eswatini ne-youth nalokhubatekile ukuthi akabuye sebenze naloyo losebenzako sikhone kubuthana sihlangane sikhone kubonisana ukuthi sikhulisana njani. Lama partners ke besiwabitele kona lokho ukuthi lapho nathi sibafisha khona batawukhona kusibambisa njobe asibambisa hulumende naye khomesa asibambisa. Kwadise phela ukuthi Msakadi siyati kahle ukuthi le federation yakheke kanjani. Yakheke nge-treaty yakhomesa lapho ema-heads of states ati-committee khona ukuthi ayosip-empowerisha. So laba bekunene-ke ma-partners sibabitele lokho ukuthi naku-ke sikhona sibomake akubanjiswaneni-ke ngoba phela ngeke sithi ema-heads of states atawuphuma etigodlweni atawu-empowerisha thina. Asayina le treaty because bebati ukuthi akhona ama-partners bakhona boba bebo-chief ikhona iphalamende ukhona uhulumende bakhona nje bonke abantu eveni basayina-ke i-treaty. Nibo-ke labantu lekufanele babambise live ngeku-empowerisha make ne-youth nalabakhubatekile.
Nguni siyathwalwa ukuthi niyiteka kakhulu indzaba yokuthi lamabhizinisi nisawabambisa kufuna ukuthi akhonse singisiya sithi abe sustainable. siyana ukuthi kulamalanga cishe nje emhlaba wonke ikakhulu ke nathi la khaya emabhizinisi lamanengi indzaba ya sustainability noma kukhonsa icishe seyiba ligolile self-first kwanyalo lamaningi awo abuke nje ukuthi amane asurvive ngabe niyibridge kanjani leyo reality gap leyo lekhona
Ngicabanga ukuthi sitayibridge leyo gap ngalokuthi ngiko sibita bonke lama partners ukuthi sibambisane ngoba nabo lama financial institutions ayasidinga nase siyabadzinga so sithi ke bonke ama partners naloyo akadlalela ichaza lakhe lakadala lo munye utasimentorisha lo munye ahambe nasi ngoba kukabi lokuthi batawuthi nje abakhoni laba yini bona laba kwendile ukuthi sikhone sibomake so besibonisana lokuthi ayisumane ijikwe nje indzaba kanjalo nangabe khona labangakhoni ababanjwe ngendlela lesibona ukuthi ababanjwe ngayo basidwe ngayo bamentorishwe bendiwe lokho lokufanele bakwende ukuze ekugcineni siphumelele sonke bomake baqhubeke kahle basebenze nawe ama financial institutions abe happy akhone ukuphila ngoba phela nabo baphila ngathi as ma customers.
Simakhulu Nxumalo make Nxumalo Thandi Nxumalo longusihlalo wayo ke i-Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa Federation of Women in Business local chapter siteka indzaba yokuthi bafuna ukuthatha those who are marginalized particularly bantu labasha bomake and those that are living with disabilities basekele ngemasu nangetinsita ke letawubasita ukuthi bakhona ukuchuba emabhizinisi abo abe ngila consile eveni la kwangwana sibahlole netmarket si ne Treasury Department yaka Nedbank letawusisita ukuthi sichache tinombolo lomuhla etmarket.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.za. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.sz.
Welcome back to the program. You're still watching Nedbank Business Watch. Now for our market analysis segment, Treasury Dealer at Nedbank, Zandiswa Lamini, joins me now in studio to help us make sense of what is happening in markets, what's moving markets today. A very good afternoon to you, Zandiswa, and welcome to the program.
Thank you, Nasila. Good afternoon to you, and good afternoon to your viewers.
Right, let's get to it. We've got Trump recently is very optimistic about Ukraine regaining its territory, and then he also, rallied against the EU, saying that they need to stop purchasing oil from Russia or China. How do we see this playing out? in terms of commodities, how do we see it panning out anytime soon?
Thank you for that question. So, as you have rightfully said, Trump have changed his stance, especially against Russia, of which it is the first time he has been actually this optimistic with the war in Ukraine. So what we have noticed is that this makes the market a bit conscious, and because this will present new risks in the market, and we are very cautious of this blowing up and involving Europe. And as you have rightfully mentioned, that he's also putting a lot of pressure in Europe. We have seen that pressure also going to India and China, of which he was trying to persuade those countries to stop buying oil from Russia. So if this war continues, that will mean a lot of disruption in terms of oil supply. We'll also see prices of gold continue to increase. And this is specifically because gold is always seen as a safe haven for the markets, where we see investors putting their money on gold if there is a bit of uncertainty. And these comments also doesn't help considering the timelines. So last week we had seen the Fed cutting its interest rate cut, having its interest rate cut, even though South Africa and Swaziland did not. But in terms of the US, this means that investors were already in the move or in the transition to move away from the US in terms of their currency and moving to gold. So that have led to even higher prices in gold. But what we have also noticed is that the price of oil did not increase much. And this is not a true reflection of what's happening in the Middle East, because the tensions are still there. The Ukraine war is still going on, and these fights might still continue. But the reason the price of oil haven't increased is because there's a counter to it. So what we have seen is that there was a meeting for OPEC Plus, where they are now projecting that in October they are going to increase their oil supply in the market. So this is going to flood the market with oil, and hence it will negate the effects of the tensions in the Middle East. So we are still going to see if there are any other further developments, but normally what we would normally see is that the prices of oil will increase with the tensions, because it will mean disruptions in supply. But because of this high supply proposed by OPEC, the prices haven't moved much.
Right. Now, while we're waiting that for our conversation unite, the numbers would tell the story better. Yes. So momentarily, what are we looking at in terms of commodities? Where do we stand?
So in commodities, the prices of gold is currently up. We are currently at 3,000. It's 3,764. This is a bit higher compared to even last week. This is because the price have been continuing to rally up with the interest rate cuts in the US, and also the tensions continuing to persist. The price of crude oil is a little bit down to 68.77. And as I've just explained, this doesn't reflect what's happening in the Middle East or in Ukraine. The war is still going on. It's just that there's a projection of a massive increase in supply of oil. And there's also this move in Europe and also in China, which affects the price of oil, where the demand of oil have fallen. So the appetite for China to import oil have decreased, and Europe, because of its move to EV cars and moving away from oil, have led to their reduced demand for oil. So this is also affecting the price of oil. But with the continued tensions in Ukraine and the comments made by Donald Trump, which might prolong the war in Ukraine, we might start to see the price of oil increasing in the future.
Right. I'd like for us to move into U.S. markets, especially in tech. We have companies, tech giants, NVIDIA, OpenAI. They're investing billions, to help expand tech in the U.S. and also to possibly see the build of new data centers and growing chip supply in the U.S. Now, in terms of investment, when it comes to the U.S. space, rather investment in stocks in the U.S. in tech, is this positive? Would this probably be the time to buy more stocks tech in the U.S.?
Thank you for that question, actually. But what's happening, it might not. So tech companies have always trended higher. We have seen the rise of NVIDIA in the past 12 months, moving up to being the biggest company in the world. So tech companies have saturated the top 10 of the most valuable by market cap in the world. If you look at S&P 500, the formulation of their top 10, even it's heavily saturated with these big companies like NVIDIA and Microsoft.
Right. So
these investments are quite positive, and in the past 2 days, we have seen equities rally up because of the news that NVIDIA is investing 100 billion into OpenAI. This also filters through to other tech companies which might get proceeds or get something from that investment. So these have helped the markets in terms of an investment or a projection perspective in terms of how much money is going to be pumped into the industry. The AI industry have been rallying up probably for the past year, but this might still continue because we are seeing a lot of positivity in terms of the investor sentiment towards AI.
Right.
And if you look at the prices of S&P, it's currently down, but this is not because there's something bad happening. It's just that it rallied up a bit high in the past 2 days because of this news. So this is sort of a correction to the current levels. And we have also seen the FTSE, it's also down today, and the JSE All Share is also down. But I would like to highlight that these are not certainly bad news in the market, but it's a correction. The markets were very high up in the past 2 days, and this is sort of a correction. As you might remember, especially for the JSE All Share, in the past 2 months or so, we were talking about it breaking through 200,000. So it was trading at 99, 98,000. So it's currently at 105,000, which is quite high. And this is in terms of South Africa and the JSE All Share.
Right.
This is mostly coming from gold, copper, because the South African economy is very heavily invested in minerals and export of minerals. So we have seen the prices of gold go up. That benefits the rand and also the JSE All Share. We have seen copper going up. We've also seen other minerals like platinum also increasing. The other aspect of the correction is coming from the Fed Chair, Jerome Powell, who have indicated in his speech that he believes that the market, the equity market is highly valued currently. So as a response to that, obviously investors will pick on that and they'll start reducing their holdings. So as the price is now starting to reduce to show that it's highly valued currently.
In a minute, we've observed the rand performing very impressively, or there's been much improvement recently. Can we keep up? How long can we keep up this positive spike?
This positive spike is mostly still coming from last week's news in terms of the interest rate decisions from the Fed and also the SARB. Okay. So what happened is that the US have cut their interest rates while the South African Reserve Bank have held theirs constant. So that means with the reduced interest in the US, investors are now moving to emerging markets, emerging economies. So this benefits countries like South Africa and Malaysia, which are under the category of emerging markets. So investors are now buying a lot of equities in South Africa. They are also buying a lot of bonds that are denominated in rands. We've seen 41 billion coming in from foreign investment recently for the government bonds in SA, and that inflow of capital into the market have improved the currency quite significantly. And there's also the issue of a hawkish tone from the SARB, which means they are not going to be cutting as aggressive as the US. They are probably going to maintain their high interest for longer, and this continues to attract more investors to come to South Africa. We can move also to the euro and GBP. So in Europe, what we've seen is that they are experiencing quite sticky inflation, and as you know, Europe doesn't benefit from holding a lot of gold or these minerals that are currently highly valued, so they are more exposed to interest rate risk. So that's why their currency have suffered that. As you might remember from last week, it was at 20.56. So it reduced by almost 30 cents. And the rand against USD was at 35, 17.35. But It's currently at 3.0, but as of yesterday, it was trading at 17.22, which was quite low. And this does present a lot of opportunity across all three currencies. It presents a lot of opportunity for importers to start or to import their goods at these levels and make a lot of money.
All right. Fair enough. Thank you very much, Sandiswa, for your insights. That was Treasury Dealer at Nedbank, Sandiswa. I mean, helping us make sense of what's moving markets in today's trading day. Otherwise, this has been Nedbank Business Watch. Thank you very much for your time. Until the next edition, take care.
Make better money choices. Choose a bank that takes your money seriously. Business Watch was brought to you by Nedbank.